Hi guys, it's Joe, and in this video I'll be showing you how to get a good bass tone from a DI'd bass track. So I've just recorded in some bass. I've recorded it through my interface, which is a Focusrite Sapphire Pro 24, and I've used my bass, which is a 5-string Ibanez SRS-C 805 if you're interested. So it's a solid interface and it's a very good bass, but the tone I've got through using a DI will only ever be so good. So here's what it sounds like. So it sounds okay, but isn't actually very bassy for a bass track. So we're going to go through a couple of processes that we can use to give it some oomph and give it a bit of beef to make it sound much better. Now first things first is I'm going to put a channel EQ on it and just take out some of that super low end because that'll help us later. As it's a 5-string, I'm not going to go any higher than 30 Hertz because that's when some of those notes start to actually be played in that frequency. And now we're going to go and open up a bass amp. So we're going to go down into here under amps and pedals and then bass amp designer. Now I quite like one of the presets, which is deep, but I always tweak it to what I want. So as you can see, bass is all the way up, mid and treble are all the way down in this EQ. So I'm going to bring that bass down straight away and then start to fade in some of these mids and trebles. So that's starting to sound a bit better already. We're also going to leave this hard compression on, but maybe just give it a little bit more gain. And we're also going to change this to 2, so it's in the middle, so it draws focus away from the bass, the low end a bit more. We're also going to change the type of EQ up here and just fiddle about with that. So I'm going to bring in some of these high frequencies again, because as you can see they're all the way down, and drop that 40 because that's going to be our super low and it'll be a bit muddy. I always drop out about 1500 to 2k just because that's where quite a lot of the finger noise is. So as you can see, I put quite a big cut there and then start to bring it in a little bit more after that. Okay, so it's definitely getting there. Next is I want to add a compressor to it. So although we had a compressor on our bass amp, I want a separate one as well. So I'm going to go into the VCA. I'm going to have quite a hard compression ratio on it, so let's say 7:1 just to get started. Turn the auto gain off and turn the attack all the way down. So threshold needs to come up quite a lot, otherwise it's just going to squish it completely. So that's sounding a bit better. I quite like putting some distortion on it as well, but that's entirely up to you. So I'll leave it on for this example. And now I want to put another EQ on it. So I'm going to go down into our EQ, vintage EQ, and I want to use the graphic. So again, this is similar to what we had on our bass amp, except we're going to be a bit more precise. First things first is I'm going to drop the drive down a little bit, otherwise I know it's going to distort. Not clip exactly, but just add a bit of distortion that I don't necessarily want to it. I've already got that from the compressor. Okay, so now we're going to start messing about a bit with our volumes here. So first things first, really, so I want to drop these down a little because as I was saying, around this area is where we get that finger noise. I want to cut that out. Okay, so that's a bit distorted for my liking, so I'm going to turn that off actually on the compressor. It's a bit better. So you're going to start boosting some of this low end. Got a nice boost around 60 to 125, that's a bit too much. And then we'll start dropping these down, basically further and further. Now I'm going to go back into here and just drop these down a little bit. I think that's where some of the clipping's coming from. Not clipping, but just distortion that I don't necessarily want. That's better. Yeah, I think it was the gain on the compressor. Cool. And then lastly, I'm going to add another compressor, but it's going to be much softer than the other two. So I'm just going to leave it on a 2:1 ratio. Might use the FET because I quite like that one too. And then threshold I'll be all the way up. So we're just going to affect the really loud parts. Again, drop the attack down. Cool, so now we're just going to have a listen to it with and without all of the processors to compare what they sounded like. So here's the original. Then everything on. So it's certainly a much more rounded bass tone, and we're getting some of that low end coming through quite nicely. This of course is just one of many ways you could do this. There are actually quite a lot of decent presets in the bass amp, but they always take a little bit of tweaking because it will never sound exactly how you would like it to. But it's worth experimenting with, especially with some of the microphones and microphone placements. But overall, I think this is quite a good sound just to get you started and get experimenting with trying out different bass tones through a DI. I hope you found this video useful, and if you have any questions, please leave a comment or contact me via my website. Thanks a lot for watching. Cheers.